right now on Higher Journeys Radio with Alexis Brooks. There are many people who live in a reality that appears predictable, normal, otherwise status quo, and often unchanging. Yet there are others who seem destined for something more, yearning to learn and grow and stretch the boundaries, determined to lift the veil and discover what reality is truly all about. Billy Carson, entrepreneur, explorer, and researcher of alternate history, is one such person. Many are familiar with Billy's impeccable research into ancient civilizations, his work in anomaly hunting, and quantum science from a spiritual perspective. But what you haven't heard until now, that is a profound and otherworldly experience that took Billy by storm in 2009 and sent him on a trajectory from which he would never look back. I'm going to start our show today with a question for our Higher Journeys audience. And then we're going to get right into this great conversation with a first-time guest who I am so delighted to finally bring onto our show. And that's Forbidden Knowledge creator and researcher extraordinaire, Billy Carson. But first, here's the question. Does anyone know what the term synesthesia means? Have you ever heard of it? Moreover, do you have it? Have you been called a synesthete? Well, for those who have never heard that term, synesthesia is a formal definition. It's the production of a sense impression relating to one sense or part of the body by stimulation of another sense or part of the body. It's a fascinating and yet very perplexing condition that it's said to affect about 3 to 5% of the population and may actually run in families. Well, yours truly happens to be one of those individuals, as well as my guest, Billy Carson. And it was during one of several long conversations that we recently had this subject of synesthesia serendipitously come up. So we're going to dive a bit into just what this, quote, condition is, what it all means, and perhaps most intriguing, is there a connection between synesthesia and ET contact? So first off, welcome, Billy Carson.
Hey, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be on here.
I'm not as excited as I am, man. Oh, listen, it's so amazing how a conversation that starts with one subject can literally take you all over the map, or the cosmos, as it were, with other subjects and journeys. And I dare say our recent conversations, we had two, were no exception. We started as having just a get-to-know-you chat after we met last month at a Contact in the Desert. And as per usual, one thing leads to another, and you shared so many fascinating personal stories with me, Billy, about your own incredible journey. I would call your journey a real-life Indiana Jones adventure. But there's one that sticks out in my mind, and you were kind enough to agree to share it with our audience today, of which I'm so grateful. It's about your own profound contact experience and how it led in large part to where you are today. So if you would take your time and share this amazing encounter with us, and then we're going to attempt to fold in the connection, if there is one, to this thing we call synesthesia. So I'm going to say, you're on. Give us the story, please, if you would.
Oh, no, definitely fantastic. I mean, yeah, we were just talking about so many different things, and it's just like you said, amazing how so many things connect together, and you start to discover a lot of synchronicities between yourself and myself and other people that have had these different experiences. And with going back to the beginning, when I first had my experience, I was just a child living in Opelika, Florida. We were living in Queens, New York, in Cambria Heights, which was a beautiful little city. And then we came down to Miami to a very rough area. I mean, extremely rough. It's Opelika is the name of the area. It's actually called the Bermuda Triangle is the actual street term for the area.
Really interesting.
Yeah.
There you go. Here we go.
They built the here we go right away from the beginning. I was already in the triangle.
Right.
But they built a steel wall around this city, which is still there, a barricade, and it's in the form of a triangle. It even has its own Wikipedia page. And that was to keep the crime in, not out.
Nah,
And we
yeah.
would have to sleep on the floor at night to prevent from getting shot and
Oh,
things like
wow.
that.
Wow.
Bullet holes in the houses, the helicopters at night, and everything else. It was really rough. But
Huh.
we did live very close to the Opelika Airport, which was a private airport. Matter of fact, Martin Lawrence and Will Smith used that airport in the Bad Boys movie
Hmm.
to do some of their stunt scenes and so forth. One of the big chase scenes was at that old airport there, which was close to my house. But I would go out in the backyard just out of boredom and watch airplanes go over. I mean, there was really nothing much else to do, at that age of 7, and go outside, watch airplanes fly over. And, it would take a plane a few minutes to clear the horizon point, maybe 3 to 5 minutes to clear the horizon, from my perspective at least. And then one day I go out in the backyard and this orb comes over. It's not an airplane. I know what an airplane looks like, even though the term UFO didn't exist in my vocabulary. I just knew this was not an airplane. It cleared the horizon in seconds.
Hmm.
And then it came back, hovered above me, which now I can reflect on about 200 meters above my head, and then it left out the way it came in. And that just threw me for a complete loop. I didn't know anything about aliens, UFOs, or anything like that in my terminology. I just knew that what I saw didn't make any sense, and what I saw, I hadn't seen in any TV or any commercials or anything like that. Back then, this is 1977, I believe it was. We had 3 or 4 channels. There was no cable TV yet. So it wasn't like right now we're inundated with UFOs and things like that all the time.
Hmm.
But back then, I think the closest thing we might have had was I can't even think of anything now. Maybe the Martian show with the horse that talked. I don't know. Those crazy
Lost
shows.
in Space. Lost in Space, maybe.
Maybe Lost in Space. I can't really remember it going back that far.
Not
It might have went
much.
back that far, but I don't know if we were able to watch it back then
Yeah.
on a black and white TV with hardly any antennas. But the next day I went to school, Rainbow Park Elementary, which was about 7 houses away from my house. So it was very close. I walked to school and walked straight to the library and got all the Encyclopedia Britannicas off the shelf that had to do with aerospace and technology.
Hmm.
And I literally started researching from that exact moment. Is when I dug into researching paranormal UFOs and aerospace and technology and everything else. That's when my research started, was literally in the 70s.
Hmm.
So that's how I kind of got my foot in the door there. Moving kind of fast forward into the future, I became an amateur astronomer and was researching the precession of the equinoxes and star locations and the magnetic shift of the Earth and everything else, how magnetic north moves from year to year and how the polarity reverses inside of the volcanic stones and rocks and everything else every so many thousands of years. And I came to a conclusion that there must be something causing this externally. So I started looking into that and researching what could possibly be causing some of these magnetic flips, as well as precession of the equinox to speed up. Because precession, I'm thinking, should be something that should be a static number, 27,500 years. But based on the calculations that I was looking at, it was shrinking down to about 23 to 25,000 years, which in geological timescales, that's a huge difference in terms of the stars moving across the sky based on the Earth's wobble.
Hmm.
So I'm thinking, is the Earth's wobble speeding up? Is the Earth spinning on its axis faster? Is it moving? These things are static still. So the only conclusion I can come to was that the sun, our sun, must be orbiting something, another body. So when I started looking into that, I discovered something that scientists were calling nemesis, which is which is an actual second sun in our solar system that we potentially could be orbiting. And now it has come to light in more recent times that my hypothesis was absolutely true when last year scientists came out and said there's a brown dwarf star
Yes.
in our solar system that has planets orbiting it that orbits our sun every 4,200 years.
Isn't that something? I heard that. Yeah.
Yes, and this is real scientific, documented scientific fact, not fiction, not we hope it's there, we can't find it. No, this is documented. They've already photographed it. They know exactly where it's at, where the location is. It's outside the orbit of Pluto right now. And I had been looking for this thing for so many years and tracking it through the infrared telescope on worldwidetelescope.org, but it's really there. Now, through this, I discovered that there could be, because of the gravitational waves, which were also now recently discovered, that this causes global warming, not only on Earth, but on all the planets and moons in our solar system, which is exactly what's happening now. It's not from cows passing gas and your exhaust pipes and everything else. So that does add a little bit to it, but we haven't made an appreciable value of error correction on any of the atmospheric changes or on any of this global warming. With that, everything that's coming is coming from these gravitational waves, which are literally warming up everything and melting all the ice caps. It's a part of a geological cycle that happens. And I realized that it could cause mudslides. Also, these gravitational waves can cause plates to slip and cause earthquakes. Also, another thing that I realized was that this brown dwarf could be tagging along a lot of debris, comet debris, which then could come toward the inner planets because of the sun's gravity and wreak havoc on the inner solar system. And when you start looking back over time, when this thing orbits, you discover that these type of geological disasters are right on time with the orbiting of this brown dwarf star. Some people call it Nibiru, some people call it Planet X. It's got a lot of names over time, but it really does exist and it really is out there. And now astronomers have been talking about a lot of comets headed in our direction. So I decided to build an underground shelter. So during that process, doing a lot of research on this geological activity and a lot of these comets that may be coming our way and tracking them and everything else, I got approached by the History Channel and ended up being featured on a show called Countdown to Apocalypse, the Nostradamus episode, where they were talking about my shelter, showing the warehouse where we had them at, and everything else. And we built a structure underground that can save the lives of 360 people. Now, during all this research, all of a sudden, one day, I'm at my house in Western Florida.
And what was the year? The year?
This is 2000. I looked it up now. It was 2009. I thought it was 2008. It was actually it was 2009, the beginning of 2009.
Okay. And
I'm sitting there and I'm going through all of the material and everything else. And I stopped. I said, let me go check out the news, the sports news. I sit down to look at ESPN. It's only like 9 o'clock at night. So I'm not tired. I'm not exhausted. I'm not going to sleep. And the house had people in it, but everybody was in their rooms and doing their own thing. And all of a sudden, the room turned into this purple haze, or this lavender/purple haze. And I thought it was a prank. I thought my kids were playing a prank on me or something. So I turned around and looked upstairs to my left, over my left shoulder, to tell my son, what are you doing? Stop it or whatever. And nobody was there. When I turned my head back around, 2 gray aliens were right in front of my face, within inches of my face. And I was horrified. I'm talking about the same exact description that everybody has given over all the decades and all the years, all the photos, all the pictures everybody's, drawn. When I say they look just like that, they look just
They really
like
did. So, oh, wow. Okay. Now, you've obviously told me this story before, Billy, and, you never cease to be amazed. We have heard numerous accounts of being approached by a variety of grays. Can you give us a little bit more of a detailed description? Height? You said they were inches away from your face.
Yeah.
Expression, if any, arm movement. Were they reaching for you? Tell us a little bit more about that.
Okay, well, I was sitting in a couch chair, kind of a entertainment couch. So that would put me probably about 3.5 feet off the ground if I'm sitting straight up, but at least from the waist down. My torso is above that, so you figure that's another 2 feet, 3 feet. So I don't know, maybe they were 4.5 feet tall at the most. Because when I turned around, they were right in my face, but they were standing up and I was sitting down still.
Right.
Okay. So I was sitting down. They were. So that's probably the height, anywhere between 4 to 4.5 feet tall, no more than 5 at the most. They had these very dangly arms that looked very weak, and their face were these big, huge almond eyes. But it had this web pattern over the black part of the almonds, almost like octagons. I would say octagons.
Interesting.
So I don't know if they were goggles, geometrically, yeah.
Geometric patterns in their eyes. That's interesting. Yeah. Okay, continue. Yeah.
So I don't know if they had on something kind of goggle over those black almonds, or if that was just the way. I don't know. They had a slit for a mouth, 2 little tiny dots for a nose. It wasn't really a nose, just holes, and slits for ears. I guess if you want to call them ears. When they didn't even open their mouths one bit, they didn't try to talk to me telepathically. But what happened was very strange, is that my brain literally started shaking inside of my skull.
Physically?
Physically shaking. Like it felt like somebody was trying to rip my brain out of my brain was literally vibrating, was shaking. My head was shaking. I was trying to scream at that point, but the sound wasn't coming out. It was like I can feel the air coming out of my throat, but no sound was actually audible. You couldn't hear anything,
Right.
which was very, very strange. And it lasted for, maybe a minute, maybe just under a minute, but it seemed like forever. And so just as fast as that happened, whatever they did, they stopped. My head stopped hurting and vibrating, and then they turned around, and this was the weirdest part of the whole thing. They really didn't walk. Let's get a little choked up now because it's so weird.
Yeah. Then take your time. Take your time.
Yeah, they really don't walk. They kind of dangle. It's very strange how they move. It's not a gait like a human gait where you would walk, heel toe, heel toe. They really kind of dangle, almost like if we were on the moon and we had less gravity or something. I don't know. It's very strange. It was almost a dangle, and they literally just walked right through the wall. Now, that part didn't surprise me because I already know that with the right technology, all you have to do is change the frequency of an
That's right.
atomic structure of anything. You can walk through anything. You can put your hand through anything. So for an average person, maybe that seems like magic, but to me, it's just technology.
Right. No, we understand. We gotcha.
Yeah, but they dangled out. It's like no other way to really explain the movement of the walk, and then they were gone. But after that happened, a few things happened to me, almost immediately. The first thing was the fact that this term was in my head, worldwide telescope, which I had mentioned just a little bit ago. That term was burned into my mind, and it just kept coming to me over and over and over again, worldwide telescope. So finally, I went on my computer like a day and a half later and said, maybe I should just look this up. So I looked up worldwide telescope, and it ended up being a public access to all the satellite data and probe data from the European Space Agency and NASA that we've all paid for with our tax money that a lot of people didn't even know existed, including me. I downloaded the software from the site. I installed it on my computer. And right away, when I opened it up, I saw panoramas from the moon, from Mars, all these other panoramas from the almost like a Google Sky, but a more high-tech one from our different satellites from Hubble and everything else. And I went to Mars, and I went to Mars panoramas. And the first Mars panorama I opened up, I saw anomalies immediately. Like the second I opened it, I saw anomalies, things that didn't belong there. And I go, oh my God, what is this? And that's how I got into anomaly hunting, literally from that experience. It took me right into anomaly hunting. I started looking for anomalies, and I have documented them ever since then. I've got thousands and thousands of these things now, all from official data, from probe data and rover data, directly from these major government websites. And then the other thing that happened was I became extremely thirsty for quantum physics and quantum mechanics. Just a hunger for it was there, and I was not just a hunger, but I was understanding it and getting a very good grasp of how it worked, and along with connecting it then also to spirituality. So I was able to connect spirituality, almost like unified physics, where you're connecting spirituality with quantum mechanics, quantum physics, or making the connection and trying to make it all work together to where you can get a better understanding that this is really truly part of spirituality, and spirituality is kind of part of it.
Yes.
Not that they're two separate things.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I became pretty good at it to the point where I started a quantum mechanics group on Facebook, which has now about 90,000 members in there, and I've helped many kids with their homework and stuff like that, but I've never been to college for quantum mechanics or quantum physics. I'm not an expert at it, but I'm pretty darn good at a lot of the majority of the basics of it. And
I have no doubt.
Explaining.
I have no doubt about that. Yeah. Listen, I've if the audience is like me, we're all collectively shaking our heads just in amazement. Billy, there is so much richness to this that I'm trying to figure out where to go here. If I want to just interject a couple of things. It's interesting that we hear countless stories of interactions being visited by particularly greys and a myriad of other species as well. But oftentimes we will hear from the experiencer that there was indeed a telepathic download, or even something that would be an internal wording, messages that are given at the time of the visit. Whereas in your case, you're saying you did not feel you were even getting a download of words and messages, but rather your brain shook, as you said,
Yeah.
physically. And so I'm wondering, it's almost like you had an elevated experience in that they knew that they could deposit very, very important concepts into your brain, hence the reason why your brain was probably physically shaking. And
Yeah.
I can't help but think that, you were obviously on a quest prior to this visit,
hmm
where you were just inquisitive off the charts.
Yeah.
There's no doubt in my mind that this visit was a part of, plugging into the next level. So I just wanted to bring that in. Just it's really
Okay.
stunning. So
Yeah.
continue if there are any other elements you want to bring in. Then we're going to, I could stay on this. We didn't even have to bring in the synesthesia, but I think that'll put another layer to the excitement. But go ahead. What other things did you remember? Was this a one-time visit, or was there another one
This was
with
the
these?
only one that I ever had. Like I said, I saw the UFO when I was a child, and then this experience was, I guess, as close to an account of the fourth kind as you can possibly
Yes,
get.
I would say so.
And it was just a real eye opener. I mean, it's something that took me a long time to even talk about. I did talk to my family about it, and it scared them. Actually, it was one of the main reasons for my divorce. So it wasn't like I was getting a lot of good praise for this
Yeah.
situation that happened. Between my research into what I was doing, building underground shelters, and now UFOs, aliens showing up at the house, it was a catalyst for an actual divorce. So it wasn't
Yeah.
like this was something I was really proud of and was bragging about, to be honest with you.
Right. Well, all the more reason why I salute
Yeah.
you, my dear, for
Thank you.
coming forward and being willing to share. And I guarantee you that this will have a benefit beyond measure that we can imagine, because there are a
hmm
lot of other people that are probably going to say hallelujah. Yet another person is talking about something that I haven't been able to. So I do
Yeah.
thank you from the bottom of my heart. I do.
Oh, thank you.
Well,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah. Anything else you want to add to that? As if you need to.
No, that's it. Yeah,
Oh,
that's kind of really about the summary of what happened.
yeah.
Yeah.
So obviously there was a lot of emotional baggage, let's just say,
hmm
that ensued as a result. I can kind of relate to that based on some of what I've gone through. But how do you feel to this day, Billy? Are you thanking? Do you find yourself in a position of, because you know that this was an integral investment
hmm
by whomever or whatever to take you on this trajectory. Are you thanking or cursing them? Is it a blessing or a curse to you? What do you think?
Well, it's a little bit of both. I mean, the blessing part is I really think that I probably did get some type of a download because a lot more interesting things happened to me. Directly after that, like I just told you, between the anomaly hunting and the spirituality and quantum physics. But the other part, the horror part for it, is sometimes when I see the grays on TV or hear people giving their testimony about what happened to them, it gets me a little, choked up from time to time, or when I'm talking about it sometimes, because sometimes it comes back and it actually scares you a little bit, to be honest with you. I'm not going to lie. Just sometimes it's okay and you feel fine, but sometimes it's just those flashes of what happened and it's a little frightening, because it's not like somebody who sat down with you and said, look, this is what's happening, this is what we're going to do, and this is who we are, or whatever. It kind of leaves you with the way it's done, it kind of leaves you feeling kind of strange at times. And because it's so hard to talk about, so hard to explain, and so many people that it has happened to have not come forward, it's taboo. And so that's a weird thing. So it's kind
Yeah.
of both a blessing and a curse, I think.
Okay. Understood. Well, again, I'm going to thank you for, and I know that there'll be more blessings, not only blessings coming to you, but the blessings that you are helping others receive, and not just in telling your story, but in all the glorious work you're doing. And we're going to get into that more as well. But for now, we'll not lift the emotion, because I think this whole thing is emotional, and it's
Yeah.
exciting, and it is still somewhat strange, but part of our maybe paradigm shift that we'll be
hmm
more involved in. But let's bring in the synesthesia. Let's fold in that element and see where
hmm
we can go with this. And this, as far as we were offline talking, and we both agreed that I don't know that this has been talked about in this way before. The synesthesia condition and marrying that with context. So let's get into that. What was it? The other day we were talking
Yeah.
that we were kind of going over prep for what we're, the story that you're going to tell and getting into that something triggered you to say, and I have this thing called synesthesia. And I got to tell you guys, what did I do, Billy? I think I went, what?
Yep. You're
Fell
like, oh my
off my
goodness, what?
seat. I was like, what are you talking about? You have
Yeah.
synesthesia. So do I.
Yeah, that's
I
wild. Yeah.
do. I have it as well. And we won't go into that too much right now, but you can only imagine, audience, that we just continue talking about how we discovered it. And I didn't even know there was a name for it. But something had me inquisitive. And I'll say briefly, my synesthesia, again, we're talking about maybe a different wiring to the brain where we associate one sense with another. I guess that's the way I would distill it. But for me, it's essentially days of the week have distinct colors. Today is Monday. It is a pumpkinish orange day. And each day has its own color. No deviation, no negotiation, period. It's always been that way. Don't know where it came from. I do not believe they were flashcards in nursery school. People have asked me when I brought it up because I thought other people had it too.
Yeah.
No, these are not primary colors. They're all distinct. So that's my form of synesthesia. Always been there, never changes. I'd love for you to talk about your synesthesia. And there's, again, multiple variations of it. But let's talk about yours, how you discovered you had it, and all the ways it affects you.
Yeah. Well, when I was very little, I was considered, I guess, if you want to call it, gifted in terms of what I was able to do. Reading books at 10 months old, and walking at 10 months. I was also a 10-month birth, so I was a 10-month baby, 10-month-old baby when I was born already. Maybe that gave me an extra month head start, I don't know. But I noticed early on that colors and numbers were associated with sounds for me. But I didn't, like I said, I didn't know that wasn't normal. I'm just assuming that everybody's got the same exact thing because I'm just a kid, so I don't know any better. I'm just growing up with it, so I don't know that it's not normal. And as well as feeling colors. So when I see certain colors, not all colors, but if colors are fairly bright and move across my eyes at a specific rate of speed, whether it's cars going by, whether I'm scrolling down a feed on Facebook or Instagram, for example, or even sometimes reading digital text and scrolling, depending on the speed that I'm scrolling and depending on the colors, I actually feel those colors in my body, which is a very tough thing to really explain. But sometimes it gets to the point where you have to slow down the speed of the scrolling because it actually becomes very irritating in a lot of ways, which is why I wear shades a lot, because the shades help with some of the sensory overload that I get between the sounds and the movement, especially if I'm in a very loud restaurant or a place where there's so much noise, and things like that. Now, so from a child, I would easily able to associate colors with letters and numbers. Like S is purple, Y is green, N is blue. E is like a slightly darker green,
Yes, yes.
I is gray, but a charcoal gray. So how all of them have these specific different types of levels of colors. But that actually would help me remember things, to be honest with you.
Because of association. I can see that,
Right.
certainly. Yeah.
Right. So a lot of my memory is fairly good in a lot of things that I do because I'm able to do the association techniques with the different colors and numbers that I see based off of the sounds. And so it actually is that way. It's actually a blessing. I mean, my grades were always good grades. I was, I remember coming home crying one time because I had an A minus. I thought I was going to get in trouble.
Oh, you brat, you. You're just a brat.
So
Well,
my
we didn't
mom
have
was,
that in common.
Yeah.
I would be clicking my heels. Are you kidding?
I never forget that day. My mom was like, "What are you crying for?" I said, "I have a bad grade." She's like, "What do you got?" I showed her the A minus, and she just started laughing at me.
Oh, like I am.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
I
Crazy
love it.
times.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I remember my mother was an educator, and so I had my papers graded twice. You can believe
Wow.
me, and I did not. If I had an A minus, I knew I was going to get a lollipop. So I was hiding my I was hiding my report card because
Uh,
it was what color is F?
yeah. Oh my goodness. Uh,
Oh dear.
so
Wow.
now
Okay.
later on, it became a lot more I guess as I got into adolescence and started becoming kind of going from a boy to a man, the synesthesia got a little worse. Then it started becoming very irritating. And then as I started talking to some of my friends about it, I realized that they didn't even know what I was talking about. And that's when I realized that I had something that was totally different from the average person. So when I was going from like 12 into 13 is when I started to realize that I had something that a lot of people didn't even know existed, and I was different. And that kind of made me kind of become a recluse a little bit, and I went into a little bit of a shell, to be quite honest with you, for a little while. I was always trying to be cool around my friends in school and stuff, but I would never really hang out with anybody or do things or whatever until I got a little bit older and I kind of got over it, and just sucked it up. But then when I became a young man in my 20s, I went in for a physical and was talking to a family doctor about it, and that's when he diagnosed me with synesthesia. So, and that's when I started. I never knew the name of this thing until that time, and that's when I started looking into it. Oh my God, this is exactly what I have. This is incredible.
Yeah, isn't that? Yeah.
Yeah, and I used to play the trumpet, and I started my own little jazz band when I was a kid. Now I am much older now, and I own a record label. And
do you really? Wow.
Yeah. Pantheon Elite Records. We're a nonprofit. We're a nonprofit. I have Forbidden Knowledge nonprofit. We're a conscious record label that has 4 artists, including myself. So I've got songs on iTunes and everything else, as long as And one of our albums that we just came out with a month ago is on Billboard for the last 3 weeks.
Oh my God. Oh boy, everybody come on over to higherjourneys.com as soon as you finish this, because I'm going to have a ton of links. Billy, make sure you hook me up with every single, seriously, because it's definitely just amazing what you're doing. We're going to get into that a little bit more later. There's so much. We'll get into that more, all the different organizations you have. And I have a feeling you've got the Midas touch for sure, and for good reason. Okay, so we discovered that we both have synesthesia. My discovery came more just out of being inquisitive, saying, well, okay, what is this? So is there a name for it? And I think I just, at this point, maybe a few years ago, maybe 5-6 years ago, I started Googling, I see colors as days of the week or something until I got closer. That's how I discovered. I wasn't diagnosed. I did not even know you could be. How did they test you? How was it determined?
Well, he just started. He sent somebody else in, and they started asking me questions about the different colors, and what does this look like? What number is this? What color is this number associated? What color is this letter associated with, or whatever? And they went back into their room and started talking, and they came back out and says, "Oh, you most likely have synesthesia."
They obviously had an inclination you did, otherwise they wouldn't have been posing the questions that way.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
They said 1 in 100,000 people get this, so it's not. I mean, that sounds like a lot, but to me, that's a lot of people that are walking around with this.
It's significant. In my research, about 3 to 5% of the population, as well as it possibly running in families, which I just So very interesting. Well, lots of interesting things here. Also, very curious that there's correlations coming up with those who have synesthesia, including ET contact. I just recently learned that a gentleman named Ed May, who's a researcher who took over for Hal Puthoff at the Stargate Research Program. I believe that's the same as at Stanford Research Institute. Hypothesizes that those who are considered synesthetes may have a predisposition for remote viewing. Essentially, however their brains are wired, they're more naturally aligned with activities that involve extrasensory perception, which makes perfect sense. Get it? To me.
Well, I was trained by Major Ed Dames in remote viewing.
Were you? Well, okay. So you just jumped the gun there. That's what I was going to ask you. So that makes sense to you then? Do you think that there are people that have this may have a predisposition to that? Do you agree with Ed May?
I can see that happening. I mean, for me, it was very natural for me. I remember the very first test I did for remote viewing, and I just said, let me just try this, because it was a test and it was a target number, and you don't know what the photo is supposed to be. And I said, let me just see if I'm predispositioned to be able to do this. And the very first test that I took, it came back unbelievable results. It was almost exactly what the target image was. And that's when I made the connection with Ed Dames, and then went and trained directly under him.
You did? Wow, with the man, Ed Dames.
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. So I check that. Check. All these things seem to be connected. Well, look, before we get fully into exploring the synesthesia contact connection, let's look at some of the people we've learned are also known to be synesthetes. It's another. I didn't know that there was a. What's that? That's a.
Plural form.
Yeah. Well, not synesthete would be the what? That's the a noun. Synesthete. That's a adjective. Now this is why I got that F. I did not know that there was a label for the individual versus synesthesia, if you know what I mean. Anyway, we're synesthetes. Yeah. Here are some of the people that you told me, and then some other people that I found later on down the line. Mary J. Blige, entertainer Mary J. Blige, Billy Joel, Kanye West. That's interesting. The late Marilyn Monroe, famed artist Van Gogh, Nikola Tesla. No surprise there. And guess what, everyone? I recently learned that our mutual colleague and my dear friend Linda Moulton Howe is a synesthete. She is too. So needless to say, we're in some very interesting company, huh?
Yeah, very, very. And also Pharrell, like you said earlier, Pharrell.
Well, yeah, Pharrell Williams. Yeah. I just learned. We're going to explore that a little bit. He's not only a synesthete, but I've been talking amongst some colleagues, and we're surmising that he may have had some contact experiences. I have a feeling there's a lot more out there having to do with that in him. Let's talk about Pharrell for a minute, because I find that interesting. I just talked to yet another colleague who happens to be a fantastic writer for Psychology Today, and she's done some amazing work in the field of synesthesia. And she actually has done some work. She actually interviewed Pharrell Williams for a book that she was doing. So I just did a little bit of digging on, could there be, we've talked about musicians that have purported to have ET contact, right? And I'm thinking, I wonder if I could find something on him that might intimate that he may have had some contact experience. So, but let me read a couple of quotes that I dug up on him, and then we'll get into the UFO thing. He told Remix magazine, quote, "Some people make music and they see things." He's talking about synesthesia. "Some people make music and they see things. The condition is called synesthesia. It's when one of your senses gets more information than what's intended. When you hear, your ears send auditory images to your brain, but some people conjure visual images to the sound as well. That's synesthesia." And then he goes on to say, "Sure, my lyrics are inspired by synesthesia. You ask any great rapper or writer or musician, and they'll tell you their craziest ideas come from the shower or the plane, because in both places there is sensory deprivation." Now, let's talk about that for a minute. How might that fold into this whole thing? When we're deprived of our five senses, could that trigger the synesthesia, or, in some cases, you think?
Well, even with a normal person, not to say normal, but with a person that may not have synesthesia or at the level that some of us may have it, let's say that person, God forbid, goes blind, okay? Well, their hearing is going to become enhanced. Yes. Because of deprivation of sight. If your hearing goes bad, then your eyesight is going to be enhanced because of the deprivation of hearing. So this is a way of the human body adjusting in certain conditions and situations. So I can definitely see with deprivation of different types of senses, other senses will pick up the slack or try to pick up the slack. And there's even been cases where you can look up of people that are blind that use echolocation to move around, like bats.
Yes.
So these are human beings doing the same thing that bats can do. So by making clicking noises, picking up the vibrations back to the ears and actually getting an image, like a side scan radar image in their mind of what's out there and maneuvering around things. There's one kid I saw years ago riding a bike and skateboarding and everything, totally blind, using echolocation. So these things can happen in the human body. The human body and the human brain is just so amazing at what it's capable of doing.
Absolutely.
And I think that we've kind of lost touch with a lot of that because of all of the things that we've become dependent on that make our lives, or we think make our lives so much easier, like technology. We've kind of lost touch with nature and our own nature in a lot of ways too.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Absolutely. Well, let's see how we can fold in this contact or experiencer / synesthesia connection. Guys, this is an exploratory discussion I'll share with my Higher Journeys audience as I was preparing for the show with Billy yesterday. And I knew I wanted to at least touch on synesthesia. And obviously, we had agreed that you would tell your ET contact experience. But then I had this the proverbial aha moment. And I thought, could there be a connection here? We've got such a variety of entry points to contact, more than I can certainly count. And I've taken a lot of those accounts personally from people. But so I can't say that this is, one-to-one. It's always the case. But I dare say there may be something here. And the question becomes, and I think when we talked offline, you kind of agreed there could be, maybe, could be.
Yeah.
That's as far as I'm going to go, could be, maybe. We're going to explore this more. But the question that then emerged for me, Billy, is, if there's a connection, I wonder what would come first, kind of like a chicken and egg. Let's say you had an ET contact encounter, and then all of a sudden you find yourself making these strange sense associations or different associations with your senses. Or is it the other way around? In other words, does one beget the other, you think? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, I think that with synesthesia, people are typically born with it. Maybe it can get stronger over time because, like I said, when I went into my adolescence, when it really started irritating me and harassing me a lot more. I think my headset's trying to tell me it's almost dead. Hold on one second. Let me plug them back in.
No problem. Okay. All right, folks. We're gonna we will keep it going here. And by the way, I'm going to say to the audience, as many of you know, I love to put the questions out there. Please do not be shy and leaving your comments on, do you have synesthesia? Remember, that's how we started the show, right? Do you have it? Are you a synesthete? Tell us your experiences. And moreover, might you be a synesthete and also a contactee? So we'll take this little commercial break to talk about that. Please do reach out to us on either our Facebook page directly at Higher Journeys or, of course, below this YouTube video that we'll be posting. So, Billy, you back?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, there you go. All right.
Yeah, okay. So basically, we were going with, so I think that people are born with it, but it can be enhanced over time or depending on maybe, I don't know, it could be hormones or whatever it is. I know that when I went to my adolescence, it got a little bit worse, but I'm thinking that if there is a connection, that maybe these alien entities or these beings, whether they're multidimensional or aliens or whatever anybody believes they are, they could be targeting a specific genetic makeup of a person with these different types of abilities or enhanced, cognitive functions, so that they can impart information or maybe even themselves just investigate or download information. Because a lot of these ETs, in my personal opinion, are like scientists that are studying, like how we study lab rats and we study things in the lab and to gain information about them and knowledge about them and just kind of figure out what they're all about and how they work and operate. I kind of like anthropology. I think a lot of these ETs are like anthropologists, to be honest with you. They're just monitoring and observing us and just really just trying to figure out more about the species and the race. Some of them could be taking genetic material for different specific types of reasons. But I think that they could target people who they feel have these different types of cognitive functions just because they may be more receptive to whatever the agenda that they have for us is.
Right. Very, very well put. I agree. I happen to think it's all on the table, Billy, in terms of their purpose in interacting with us to whatever degree. With the assumption that there are many different species, some malevolent, some benevolent, some neutral. But I think you're onto something there. Good point, that for those who have a slightly different configuration biologically, psychologically, the entry point of contact between non-human intelligence and the eventual recipient has to be somewhat unique. It's interesting. I just got an email today from someone who watches the show or listens and watches, who is desperate to have contact. This person is interested. I believe he's about 68 years old. And he said, Alexis, can you please give me some advice? And he was very polite email. I don't know quite how to answer because I don't know that there is a pat answer on, well, here's my manual on how to have contact. But I do think that in more cases than not, the entry point to the contact comes through a sort of gap in the senses. It's not necessary. In your case, it was physical. Sometimes it's
Right.
not. Sometimes you're taken physically. Sometimes you're not.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's something that can't even be defined. So,
Hmm.
I want to go back to your experience. This big one. They're all big, of course. Seeing the orb
Yeah.
was big. 2009 was huge. I want to go to something that UFO researcher Grant Cameron has said many times, and I've used this before. Based on his extensive research, he feels that if a person recalls just one experience at some point in their lives, then he believes that that person is a lifer, a lifelong experiencer. He calls them a lifer. Do you have a suspicion? I mean, even keeping in mind the one that you had as a child, the orb, do you have a suspicion that you may have had multiple experiences that you're just not recalling right now?
It's very possible, and the reason why I say that is because of certain dreams that I would say that I've had. I considered them dreams, not real experiences. And I always thought that they might just be flashbacks of what happened, or my mind wants to go that way because of the experience that I had, the big experience in back then. But it's very possible that these were not experiences, that they could have been real, because these people or these entities, their technology is so advanced. They have the capability of mind wiping you, making
Yeah.
your experiences feel like dreams, giving you that surreal type of feeling to where you can't really put a finger on it and say it was real or not. So they have that kind of technology. So it's very possible that some of these dreams that I've had over the years about this situation, and even going further into other situations, were not dreams. And you just never really know. I just, the more I looked into it and the more I started researching all of the people, and now it's in the millions of people that have come forward to talk about these beings that have come and engaged them at some point or another. I've come to the realization that not only am I not the only one, but there's multi millions of people out there that have gone through the same thing or different scenarios of it, which makes it to me very, very real.
Yeah. I happen to believe that there may be millions or billions that have had some form of contact and are unconscious of it.
Yes, yes.
So very interesting. I keep thinking about this encounter, Billy Carson. Wow. I don't even know what adjective to use. Just wow. Not just because, I mean, this was a very physical experience. I think we could even put ourselves in your room and see it. You were so explicit in the way you
Yeah.
described it. I just keep thinking that these, the raging debate of are they good or are they bad? I happen to think there's a spectrum, but in this
Yeah.
case, it seems that these two grays were invested in having you carry out a mission. What do you
Yeah.
think?
No, I definitely believe that. I mean, and it's, like I said, it's almost it's very uncomfortable to even admit something like that, because you don't want to be like, well, these I'm influenced by gray aliens. It just sounds like you're a lunatic. I mean, to be quite honest with you.
Oh, yeah. See what the media has
But
done? See what the media has
yeah,
done to us? That's
they
horrible.
they they've
Yeah.
got us where we're afraid to talk about these experiences, and then we feel like we're not even a human being anymore if something like this happens to us. It took me a long time to get to this point, but I'm glad that I'm here now, because hopefully, like you say, somebody else will hear me talk about this and they'll be able to come out and talk about it.
Yeah.
But I really do feel like they definitely the word worldwide telescope, that's something that I'll never forget. It was literally burnt into my mind, and I had never heard of this I thought it was a website. It turned out to be software that you have to install on your computer, and it was a process. I had to go through it, download, install it, reboot the computer and everything else to get to it and open it up, and you have to learn how to use it. It's real specific software, and it's very technical, because you can go into different modes, different satellite imagery modes, to view different types of stars and quasars and brown dwarfs and everything else, using the data from the WISE telescopes, using the data from the Huygens probes, the Mars Curiosity rover, Opportunity Spirit rovers, the Mars Global Surveyor, Apollo 11 missions. All this is in there. It's amazing. And
Amazing.
yeah, and I literally, like I said, this was something that I really feel they gave to me. I'm not going to try to even dance around the bushes. I really feel this is something they planted in my head.
For sure.
Yeah.
Oh, this is amazing. Let me ask you, is this the Worldwide Telescope software? Is this something that anyone could get access to today?
Absolutely. They've actually upgraded it now to an HTML5 version. The last time I was on that website, which was a few months ago. So now you can use the HTML5, which means you won't have to install, or you can install it for Mac or Windows version as well still and utilize it.
Okay. Is this a
Um,
link you could share with our audience?
yeah, definitely. I sure will.
Okay,
I'll
if you could
send
give
over
that
those
to me.
links.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
perfect. Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing. Let's do this. We're going to wind down, then I want you to talk a little bit about your wonderful trip you just came back from. But just another reference on the synesthesia contact connection. And believe me, guys, if you're liking what you're hearing, what tree we're barking at, we may take this a bit further. But I want to just leave you with this on the connection. Another reference that I found to be rather curious, and that's the closing scene from the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Steven Spielberg film. I so wish we could play the clip for our audience, but due to copyright issues, that won't be happening. I'm not going to take that chance. So instead, I'm going to put a link to where you can watch that closing scene. And most of you have seen it. Obviously, you've seen the movie. You know that famous scene where it's a group of scientists who are playing notes on a giant keyboard as a form of communication with the mothership. And if you recall, I'll send the link once again, the mothership responds by regurgitating the notes back out, but along with the sounds, each note is accompanied by a specific color, a spectrum of color. Isn't that interesting?
Yep, that's right. Very reminiscent of synesthesia.
There you go.
Yeah. And
So,
there's a,
yeah.
I was going to say, there's a real quick on psychologytoday.com, Psychology Today. I'll send you a link to this article that I had looked up where actually a real quick quote, one paragraph says, anomalous experiences include such phenomena as synesthesia. They're talking about alien abductions. Anomalous experiences include such phenomena as synesthesia, hallucinations, lucid dreaming, past life memories, and alien abduction, amongst others. Many of these experiences are fascinating, possibly disturbing or life-changing for the people who experience them, and they often change our understanding of consciousness and the universe we inhabit.
There you have it. Please send that link. That would be
Yes.
fantastic. And by the way, I think I saw that. Yeah,
Okay.
I think I may even know who the author is on that one, but we're going to leave
Cool.
that for now. But oh wow, this is really interesting, guys. Let's see where we can go with it. But listen, we're about to sign off. But before we do, tell us what you've been up to. I know you just returned from the Yucatan and saw some great stuff. What was
Oh,
happening there?
yeah. Finally got back down there after 20 years to the Yucatan Peninsula down in Mexico. The first time I went to Tulum. I've never been there before. Tulum are these amazing pyramids that are actually on the beach at this wall, at this kind of natural wall break or break wall, if you want to call it, overlooking the ocean. What an amazing, amazing place. The structures that are there, you still cannot put a human hair in between the stones. I mean,
Wow.
that these things are thousands of years old. They're trying to say they're only a few hundred years old, but come on, I know much better than that already. The truth about the structures there at Tulum and at Chichen Itza, where I went down in the Yucatan, these structures are they're far older than anybody knows, and they were built by the Teotihuacans, who were led by Thoth, the Atlantean, who came over from Egypt with the Olmecs and built these structures. The Mayans actually inherited these locations many hundreds of years later. And then even hundreds of years after that, the Aztecs came in and inherited the locations, the structures that were already there. They didn't build the structures that were there. They inherited what was there. Kind of like how the Egyptians from the dynastic periods inherited what the Kemetic dynasties left behind as well, with Giza and everything else. All that stuff has been there for 30, 40,000 years, far older than anybody's talking about in the mainstream.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you got to see it, and you said you got some great footage with some fancy
Yeah.
camera equipment. So where
Got the 4K footage. I can't wait to put together some mini documentaries and information about them. It's going to be amazing.
do you think we'll be able to see some of that on Gaia? Nice segue.
Absolutely. I was just talking to them yesterday, as a matter of fact. So I'm putting together a lot of the content that I got from Cambodia, from Angkor Wat, from all the different surrounding temples there, as well as the Yucatan Peninsula and Tulum. So I've got a lot of jungle video that I'm putting together from around the world.
It's going to
And,
be a treat for everyone. Go on over to Gaia and get yourself hooked up so you can see Billy. Let's transition and talk about that in our closing minutes. What do you have going on Gaia right now, and what will you have, including this great stuff?
Well, right now I'm on Deep Space season 1 and season 2 on Gaia, which for me, well, I'm a host that talks about the ancient times. So I kind of connect the ancient with the modern. So I'm talking about the ancient space program, really is what I'm mostly talking about, and how those technologies from ancient times kind of correlate to things that we have today.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I do there. And then I've been on Ancient Civilizations as well, which is another show that kind of talks about, goes into some of the technology from ancient times, but also talks about some of the downfall of how religion is man-made and how it kind of really has sidetracked mankind's consciousness. But right now, I'm putting together some documentation and some episodes to get my own show, which would most likely be called Forbidden Knowledge with Billy Carson.
Love it.
And yeah, it's going to be amazing because what's going to happen is right now when I make a post to some content to my followers on social media, it's only 2,200 characters at most, and they get a chance to get a small taste of what I'm talking about. But a lot of people always want more. They want to get a better understanding. So now, not every post, but for some posts, I'll be able to say, if you want to learn more about this, go to my Gaia channel, which I already have a channel up. But they'll be able to go there and find out more information on that specific content and maybe look at a 30 or 45-minute episode about that and then get to see and learn a lot more information than just looking at an Instagram post or a Facebook post.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I think that'll help a lot of people out, especially because I like to use a lot of visual learning techniques, so they'll be able to see a lot of things and they'll be able to grasp a little bit more than they normally would.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, I believe there is a link for you right now to take to your Gaia page. Yes?
Mm-hmm. Yes, there is. Yeah, okay. You can just go to gaia.com/forbidden. So that's GAIA.com mm-hmm. /4 BIDDEN. Mm-hmm. Or you can go to forbiddenknowledge.com or the number 4, forbiddenknowledge.com. And you can, there's links there that'll take you to my Gaia page. Or you can download my Forbidden Knowledge mobile app. Oof. On iTunes or Google Play. The number 4, Forbidden Knowledge. There's over 50,000 downloads already.
Oh, my Lord. Well, guess what, everyone? You're going to have to come over to higherjourneys.com. I don't even think the YouTube description will allow me to put all of those links. Seriously, come to higherjourneys.com. We will have Billy's interview prominently placed. As soon as you're done listening, come on over, or you may be originating on the website, but make sure you check out. We'll have every conceivable link that is associated with Billy Carson on that post, I guarantee you. What can I say, Mr. Carson? You the man.
Oh, thank you. You the woman.
Oh, you're so sweet. Well, listen, it was just such a pleasure to have the chance to meet up with you quickly at Contact. But we're going to be getting together soon in person. Mm-hmm. Stay tuned, guys. We're going to be doing it on camera. Talk about visuals. Maybe he'll have some more visuals for us when we meet again. But for the time being, we are just so appreciative for your courage and your grace in telling us this story, and just know and trust, Billy, that it is for the highest good. So I thank you for that. Thank you for that. Don't hang up. I want to chat with you offline for a minute, but for now, everyone in the Higher Journeys audience, as always, we thank you so much for tuning in. We'll talk to you next time.